Let's start, Chris, with you. And I think we've got an image of you and what you do, if the team can throw it up there. And I'll just ask you, can you just give us kind of the origin story of Billboard Chris? Mild-mannered, private life financial advisor to, global advocate.
Yeah, my parents had amazing foresight when they named me. But I used to be a financial advisor. I had a real job, but my main job in the world, of course, for most people in the room, we understand this, my main job is that of a dad. And in the year 2025, a dad is a human male who protects his kids from gender ideology. So, origin story, wasn't born wearing a billboard. In 2019 on Twitter, I came across this term, puberty blockers. And I said, what the heck are those? That doesn't sound very good. And I started researching this. And I'm just one of these people who researches everything. And of course, it's totally insane to be stopping puberty in a perfectly healthy child. And the average person, every normal person in the world who hasn't already been indoctrinated understands this. Why are we stopping the development of perfectly healthy children with a drug that has never been approved for these purposes? This drug was approved for prostate cancer, for endometriosis, uterine fibroids. This drug, to this day, is still used to chemically castrate sex offenders. Oklahoma just passed a law where sex offenders, pedophiles, can't even be released from prison until they've undergone chemical castration. And we're giving this to kids because it happens to stop puberty. So I have two girls, and I started learning about this, and this is really a social contagion that is affecting mainly girls. This condition known as gender dysphoria, which is really just distress from a variety of sources, including distress about one's sex. This used to affect a handful of the population, and mostly boys, maybe 1 out of 30,000 kids. Today you'll have schools where it's 1 out of 30, because they're teaching this in schools. And of course, with any truly terrible movement, they want to get to the kids. And what they've succeeded in doing is indoctrinating an entire generation. And this ideology is coming down from the UN and from all of these governments, and it's being funded through different NGOs, which are funded by these leftist governments. And so the more I learned about this, the worse it got. And I just felt like I really had to do something. My wife would be marking homework at night because she's an elementary school teacher, and she probably thought I was obsessing about this because I was reading about it every night. But what happened in July of 2020, a woman put up a very controversial poster at the Edinburgh train station. It said, "I love J.K. Rowling. I heart J.K. Rowling," the Harry Potter author. It lasted a day because some people on Twitter complained that it was hate speech. Because, of course, J.K. Rowling has said the truth about what's happening to women's rights and with this medical scandal affecting kids. They took this poster down the next day. I got tired of our freedom of speech coming under attack. So I did what every reasonable person does, and I put up a huge billboard on the side of the road heading into Vancouver, Canada, the 51st state up there. My lovely communist country. It's not all bad, there's lots of good people up there. But I put up this billboard that said, "I love J.K. Rowling." A Vancouver politician said it was hate speech, and they took it down the next day. As always, with censorship, that's the most wonderful thing they can do. It's called the Streisand effect. When they try to censor you, they blow up the message 100 times more. And that's what it did, and I leveraged that outrage online into a quick little fundraising campaign. And I had the same billboard up in San Francisco a week later. And then Portland, LA, all throughout Utah, all throughout the metro in Washington, D.C. And I finished off my September of 2020 with a billboard in Times Square, all with this same message. And then I ran out of money. I just started a nonprofit, by the way. But anyway, give all your money to ADF first. But I then did the only thing I can do. I quit my job as a financial advisor, and I had signs made. And I became a human billboard. Because I have a vision to start millions of conversations, and I thought we have to get out of our echo chambers online and we have to get into the real world. That's how we're supposed to talk to people, face to face. Not arguing with anonymous people on Twitter. And it has the added benefit of 100,000 people driving by or walking by in the day seeing my ridiculous self, and it starts conversations. Because I believe that one conversation at a time, we're going to stop this child abuse. And over the last 5 years, I think I have been proven right, because we are winning spectacularly.
Well, that's an amazing origin story, and thank you for sharing that with us and for your courage. Paul, I want to pitch it over to you now. As the head of the ADF international team, you have a particularly unique perch to look at the global threat to free speech. And I know you've talked about how the online theater is probably the most dangerous theater and threat right now to free speech. Can you just unpack that for us here, tie it to the CIC, help us understand how the censorship regime operates and how Europe is involved?
Sure. I think that, is my microphone on? Oh, I've got one here as well I can use. I completely agree with Chris that we should have in-person conversations, but the reality is in the 21st century we also have the digital public square where so much speech takes place. And the rise of the internet over the last 20 or so years, particularly the rise of these social media platforms, has led to millions of fantastic conversations. As a Christian, I've seen it lead to the gospel message go out to all four corners of the world. But we've also seen a huge amount of pushback from government authorities and from private censors to really rein in the digital public square. And this has real victims. It affects real people. I'll give three just quick examples to personify the issue. So the case I've worked on the most over the last 5 years is that of Päivi Räsänen. She is a very experienced member of the Finnish parliament, a former government minister. She one day went to her room, took a picture of some Bible verses and posted them on X. The reason she did that is because the state church in Finland was supporting a Helsinki Pride Parade, and she thought that that went against the teaching of the Bible and the teaching of the church. So she took this picture of the Bible, put it on X, and for doing that has faced over 5 years of criminal prosecution for hate speech. Later this year, we will be in the Supreme Court of Finland defending her right to post Bible verses online. Give another example, this time of a man called Abdul Baki Saeed Abdo. Now, he is Yemeni, but living in Egypt. He started a Facebook group because he converted from Islam to Christianity and wanted to talk to others who were considering doing the same. As part of this private Facebook group, he was arrested, he was prosecuted for the crime of attempting to convert Muslims. And then on the other side of the world, another client, Gabriel Quadri, leading Mexican politician, former presidential candidate of Mexico, and he one day spoke out online because in the Mexican Congress, there are a certain number of seats within the Congress reserved for women. And men who identify as women started taking those seats in Congress. So he criticized that on X, and he was prosecuted for, quote, gender-based political violence. What is that? Well, it's not violent, that's for sure. It basically destroyed his political career. And so here we have 3 individuals on 3 different continents, all facing real-world consequences for doing what? For engaging in conversations online, whether it's on X, on Facebook, or WhatsApp, and so forth. And the reality is that the public square is now in the digital space, and the battle for free speech, therefore, is taking place in this digital arena. And in the 3 examples I just gave, they were examples where the government itself went after these 3 individuals. But what we've seen in the last few years, and we talked about it just in the previous panel, is this collusion between now the government and private actors to censor speakers through the platforms themselves. And they're doing that through a whole raft of legislation using vague terms like hate speech, misinformation, or even phrases like online safety. And these are now buzz terms that are being used to censor all of us in our online discourse. Probably the most obvious example of this is the European Union's Digital Services Act, which is this huge piece of legislation, which I won't get into. But it basically says this to the companies: if you don't censor speakers online, we will issue you with crippling fines that put you out of business. But if you censor too much speech, if you take speech down, too much speech, no problem at all. You can do that as much as you want. So what do we think is going to happen over time with these for-profit companies? Are they going to defend freedom of speech, or are they going to comply with the censors? And what we're seeing, of course, is that they are complying with these government orders and censoring more and more speech. And that's where the battle is right now.
Well, that's a great overview, Paul, and appreciate that. Chris, you actually have been on the receiving end of one of these Digital Service Act kind of laws, the cousin of it in Australia, the eSafety Act. Whenever a censor tells you they want to keep you safe, run the other way. So tell us a little bit about that case and what you had to go through to ultimately defend your free speech rights in Australia.
Sure. So Australia put together this law, which, as they often do, they put together these safety laws for online censorship, and they package it as protecting against childhood sexual exploitation, which we can all get behind. This, of course, is a Trojan horse because it always leads to other censorship. And they have this bureaucratic official in Australia called the e-nanny, or the e-safety commissioner, and her job is to censor the internet for the entire world. So what happened was the Daily Mail in Britain wrote an article about a woman named Teddy Cook. Teddy Cook identifies as a man, and she publishes on her social media the most inappropriate material you can imagine. I won't get into it, but it's terrible. I criticized her appointment to the World Health Organization because naturally, she was appointed to a panel of 20 so-called experts tasked with drafting healthcare policy for children and adults struggling with trans identification. She's not a doctor, she's not a medical professional, she's just an activist caught up in this cult of gender herself. I called her a woman because she is, and I criticized her appointment, and so the Australian government ordered an American company to take down a Canadian's post featuring a British article. I challenged that, I appealed it. Elon Musk then also appealed it. Thank you. And then just over a year ago, I had appealed this, but I needed proper lawyers. This was escalating, and I'm just a poor activist. I can't afford lawyers. But I'd gone to London to do my things, and I always say that good things happen when you go outside, which by extension means when you put yourself out there, great people are going to come into your life. And you just have to take that first step sometimes. And I was having dinner with my friend Andy No, who wrote the book on Antifa. I think between the two of us, we've had the most assaults from Antifa. But this amazing young woman named Lois McClatchy Miller came over. She, of course, is the international spokesperson for ADF International. And I told her about my case. ADF then flew me to Vienna the next day where I met with Paul. They were happening to have a parental rights conference going on at the same time. And they agreed to take my case, found me lawyers in Australia. And in the greatest victory for freedom of speech on planet Earth this year, we just defeated the Australian government, and my post has been restored. And more importantly, we set a precedent where it is okay to call a woman and a man in the great 52nd state of Australia.
So Paul, give us a sense of the significance of the Australian case. I mean, yeah, probably Americans are probably thinking, and maybe a lot of people outside of America are thinking, well, it's just Australia. So why does this matter for the global battle for free speech?
I think at this point, the headline here is you can't just look at the battle for freedom of speech within the digital realm in particular and imagine that there are just little pockets around the world where, hey, we got our free speech here in the US or what have you. This is completely global. And it is a mixture of different foreign actors working together, including from here in the US, and a mixture of private and public power, and it's all entwined together. And so there is really no sense of saying it's just happening here or it's just happening there. Believe me, what the European Union wants to do, what the Biden-Harris White House wanted to do, what the Starmer government wants to do in the UK, what is taking place in Canada and Australia, it's all out of the same censorship playbook. They are essentially wanting total narrative control over the digital sphere. And so the victory for Chris sets an early precedent in what is going to be a long battle, because this e-safety commissioner wanted to censor Chris, wanted to block it for the entire world, and then issue crippling fines to X if they didn't comply. And the e-safety commissioner lost, and it will help to set a positive precedent as we do battle on similar grounds in similar jurisdictions around the world. I would say that in many ways, this battle began with the twin political earthquake of Trump Brexit in 2016, which really took all of the global elites by surprise. None of these events were meant to have happened. And ever since 2016, they've been trying to rein in our speech so that we don't make the wrong decision again at the voting booth. And I would say, as a Brit, that if the US election had gone the other way in 2024, then they were very close to completing this project. That didn't happen, and now we have an incredible opportunity to win back our freedom, and in many ways that battle is just beginning.
Yeah, that's so true. And one thing Paul didn't say, but I want to make sure everybody in this audience hears, is ADF, International ADF, have been, I think, providentially appointed for the moment, considering where your team is positioned on the international landscape at Brussels, at the UN, in the UK. And of course, we have a very strong US presence. There is a desperate need for cross the ocean coordination to attack this problem and be successful. And God just happened to put us in a position to have people exactly where they need to be to fight this battle.